South Africa at a crossroads. G20 tensions, diplomacy, power, and a $293 billion opportunity. G20 exclusion story. Tonight's top story: South Africa has not been invited to the first major G20 meeting under the new U.S. presidency, a move raising serious diplomatic questions and shaking the foundations of one of the world's most influential platforms. A sudden exclusion. The United States sent out invitations this week to all G20 members for the first Sherpas meeting, scheduled for the 15th to the 16th of December in Washington. Everyone received an invite, except South Africa. This confirms President Donald Trump's fiery declaration last week that South Africa will not be invited to the 2026 G20 Leaders Summit he plans to host in Miami. Trump claimed, again, that the U.S. skipped the Johannesburg G20 summit because of human rights abuses against Afrikaners. He also accused Pretoria of refusing to hand over the G20 presidency during the November summit. What really happened? President Cyril Ramaphosa did refuse to hand over the presidency, but only because the U.S. was represented by a junior acting ambassador, not a senior official. Days later, South Africa formally completed the handover to acting ambassador Mark Dillard at the Department of International Relations and Cooperation. Despite that, the U.S. administration has proceeded with a full diplomatic freeze-out. How South Africa responds. DIRCO spokesperson Crispin Fury expressed concern over the unilateral move, stressing that South Africa remains a founding member of the G20 and that the forum's legitimacy relies on respecting established protocols. He warned that excluding one member sets a dangerous precedent, one that could threaten any country's membership if geopolitical tensions escalate. Some officials privately noted that even though South Africa has the right to attend, you can't just show up if you haven't been invited. Growing international concern. Not all G20 members agree with Washington's approach. A diplomat from another member state said South Africa should arrive anyway, arguing that permanent members don't traditionally need invitations to attend G20 meetings. Another official went further, saying the U.S. exclusion of South Africa may itself become an agenda item during the Washington meeting. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has already promised to ask Trump to reconsider. Still, no major economy appears willing to boycott the meeting in protest. The U.S. resets the G20. After officially taking over the G20 presidency on the 1st of December, the U.S. immediately wiped South Africa's G20 website content, including the 30-page Johannesburg Declaration, development priorities, and the entire record of South Africa's year-long agenda. The site now displays a single image: Donald Trump, fist raised, beside a new G20 Miami 2026 logo and the slogan, "The best is yet to come." The U.S. has pledged to shift the G20's focus toward deregulation, energy supply chains, and technological innovation, a clear signal that Washington wants a very different G20 from the development-focused approach South Africa championed. South Africa now faces a diplomatic crossroads, and the world is watching to see how other nations respond to an unprecedented reshaping of global governance norms. Despite the political tensions stirred by President Trump's decision to sideline South Africa from the upcoming G20 meetings, the country is simultaneously demonstrating its long-term economic value on the global stage. While Washington questions Pretoria's place at the world's most powerful table, analysts and development planners are pointing to South Africa's vast potential to unlock nearly $5 trillion South African rand in infrastructure and clean energy investment with the right financial reforms. In other words, even as diplomatic relations face strain, South Africa's economic fundamentals, from renewable energy expansion to major public works, pipelines, are attracting attention from global investors and multilateral institutions. The contrast is striking. At the same moment the U.S. is attempting to narrow South Africa's geopolitical influence, the country is positioning itself for one of the largest investment surges in its modern history: the infrastructure and financial reform investment story. A groundbreaking new study shows that South Africa could unlock as much as 5 trillion rand, almost $293 billion, for infrastructure and clean energy projects, if it carries out sweeping changes to its financial system. A massive opportunity hidden in the system. The report, prepared for the National Planning Commission, argues that South Africa's current financial architecture is not designed to channel capital into high-priority sectors such as renewable energy, public infrastructure, and critical industries outlined in the National Development Plan, NDP. Structural reforms, including updating the monetary and financial framework, could finally unlock the capital flow needed to lift the economy out of stagnation. Stagnant growth and infrastructure pressure. More than a decade after the NDP was adopted, South Africa faces one of the highest unemployment rates in the world, entrenched inequality and economic growth averaging less than 1% annually. Years of infrastructure strain, from failing electricity systems to port congestion and crumbling transport networks, have scared off both domestic and foreign investors. Business Insider Africa recently reported that Johannesburg alone needs 221 billion rand, or nearly $12 billion, to repair its infrastructure. The investment gap. To hit its targets by 2030, South Africa needs more than 6 trillion rand in public sector spending and 2 trillion in private sector investment. That demand aligns almost perfectly with the estimated 5 trillion rand that could be unlocked through reforms, showing the potential for a once-in-a-generation economic turnaround. The study says that an upgraded system would boost South Africa's shift toward renewable energy, expand the grid, and open financing pipelines for sustainable growth. The government's position. President Cyril Ramaphosa has repeatedly emphasized the central role of infrastructure in reviving the economy. He calls it the flywheel of South Africa's economic engine, the mechanism that can create jobs, attract investment, and rebuild confidence if managed and maintained correctly. Earlier this year, South Africa partnered with the World Bank on a $3 billion initiative to restore essential services and upgrade infrastructure across 8 major cities. The new findings point to a powerful reality. While political disputes may dominate news cycles, South Africa's long-term economic potential remains immense. With the right reforms, the country could unlock one of the largest investment waves in its modern history, fueling clean energy, rebuilding cities, and positioning South Africa as a competitive force in the global economy. From Johannesburg, I'm Pier, and this is VlogND. Stay tuned as we continue tracking the shifting landscape of global politics, Africa's development, and the forces reshaping the continent's future. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like and share our videos. We appreciate your support.